Hi everyone, this is Sarah DM and you're back for episode 10 of DM Talks. DM Talks is a podcast that aims to promote well-being and assist healing, whether that be physically, mentally or spiritually. Ultimately, we just want to be seen in our entirety, and this podcast hopes to show listeners how multifaceted they are. We're all at the centre of our own universe, so why don't we do more to better our own existence? So welcome back everyone. I'm really excited for today's episode. I feel like I'm excited for like every single episode, but today I'm double excited because we're gonna get into it. We're gonna give you all the tea, and oh my god, I'm so gassed. I'm so gassed. I need to introduce my guest first of all, and I found my guest through a good friend, Amber. Shout out to you. Today we are. Sorry, I don't know why I'm stuttering and talking like this. I'm really excited. I'm just really excited because I've been talking about this for so long, and now it's here. But okay.
Okay.
So it's a bit flustered. Okay. So today I'm really excited. I am joined by a guest that I'm really inspired by. Really inspired by. She is a Black woman. She is a therapist. She is also uses her Instagram platform to educate the masses in that psychological way. Oh, I just love it. I'm so excited. So without further ado, welcome Tasha. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are you
I'm
today?
so excited to be here, honestly. Like, this is like I'm so gassed. So
honestly, I'm so happy because I've got a smile from here to here. As soon as I spoke to Amber, she's like, "Oh, I know someone so good. Do you love to speak about this?" I'd be like, "Sold." I've just been in my feelings. I've been manifesting this like episode even before this uprising of Black Lives Matter, even before like everybody wanted to learn about race, all of that. Like, I wanted to talk about my dissertation in a way that was relatable and also accessible, because that's the thing. Like, I love the fact that I did a dissertation on racial microaggressions. Like, I'm still so proud of myself, but not everybody is not everybody is able to get that information, you know? So like, let's say if we discuss it in a podcast, it's like, oh, I got it here.
Yeah.
But before we just start wailing on, can you tell listeners a bit about yourself? How did you get to your position, and tell us a bit about the Real Talk therapist?
Okay, yeah. So I'm a child and adolescent counsellor. So I work with adults, with children, with teenagers, and it's just always been a dream of mine. Like, since I was 15, I was like, I want to be a child psychotherapist. And I think due to so many things, like mental health in my family, my experiences, seeing that mental health isn't really spoken about within the Black community, it's something that's kind of shunned or not spoken about, and there's a lot of shame around it. I also love creativity and art and music and metaphor, and so the way that I work specifically with my clients is to use all of that stuff, because sometimes words are just not enough. So I work in private practice with my own clients. I also work in a primary preschool, and I also work with young people aged 16 to 25 in a charity. And I also work in the self space as well.
Oh, amazing.
A really amazing kind of radical therapy service.
Ooh, what's that?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, so therapy is like really like, it's pretty rigid, right? You go the same time each week, and it can feel a little bit cold, or traditionally it can feel a bit cold, but I guess self space is a very kind of modern way of doing things. So you can book in a session whenever you want to. You don't have to go weekly, you can go monthly, you can go just whenever you need to. So it's a very kind of different, it's all done through an app, like it's all very different.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, that's another bit of my work. And Real Talk Therapist is a account that I made January this year. And I guess I realized that a lot of people are interested in therapy, but perhaps are a little bit scared about it because it seems very cold and very clinical. And there's this whole thing about keeping boundaries as a therapist. And so I was thinking about, when I was looking for a therapist, it's pretty scary. I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of anxieties about approaching it, and didn't really know where to go with that. And so I thought I'd make a page about that therapy is pretty scary, a scary step. But
Yeah.
actually, we could have conversations on my page, which will basically kind of open up the awkward stuff and the difficult stuff, questions that you really want to know, and even calling out some of the like areas that are just not working in the therapy world. And specifically thinking about what it's like as a Black woman, and particularly as a Black British woman, because there's a lot of stuff out there about African Americans and Blackness, but not so much about Britishness. So my page is basically about the real talk of therapy. It's like naming the awkward moments, it's naming the hard moments, it's naming when you need to break up with your therapist. Like, it's just all these kind of things that you probably have questions of, or you're curious about, but need space to kind of know what that is and what that is. So, and it's really colourful because I love rainbows. So, yeah.
Amazing. Honestly, that's brilliant. Like, I think the fact that you're, like you said, but providing this information in an accessible way with color and with like animation and with like that simple formatting, like we don't realize how receptible that is. And when you sort of tap into how significant that is, it helps educate the masses. And like, oh, yay, well done you. I'm so happy for you. Like, because I just think it's sick. Like, I think, like, even when I wanted to do this podcast, like, well, the fact that I'm doing this podcast in itself, like, it's all to do with healing and well-being and sort of helping you change perspectives. But if you are Black and British and experience racial trauma, how can you constructively work through it if you're not given the tools like surrounding it? Like, I remember even on the phone to you when we were talking about unhelpful thinking habits, and I'm sure we'll get into it in Decoding the Messes, so maybe I'll save it for a little bit then. But yeah, no, I just find it really, really inspirational what you're doing. So yay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. It really has grown much further than I imagined that it ever would. Like, I just thought it'd be like a nice little side project, and I'll just see how it goes. And, you know, probably no one wants to talk about therapy on Instagram anyway, but actually a lot of people do.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, it's been cool.
Because like you said, like there was a lot of stigma associated with mental health and therapy within the Black community. So it's like all the people, I think, like, well, I can't speak for everyone, but you know, like how that sort of intergenerational belief, like if that's sort of taken away by like my age, then you've got all these people that want to look for a platform to learn about this stuff. However, they don't know where to start. So that's why it's great to have tools like yours on Instagram, because it's like, oh, I can learn about it through here, and then that will promote my independent study, and now you're going to therapy.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's just a ripple effect of like development, personal development, and I'm so here for it. But before I ask you 101 questions about what's it like to be a Black woman, also therapist, I think we should get into the first segment of the episode. So yeah, that's the Divine, and that's where we nominate a good thing. And yeah, so I've got a nomination. It was just a really, really nice experience, so I thought I'd bring it up. This weekend, I had the opportunity to visit a few friends because it was one of their birthday, and we had a lovely weekend, ate loads of food, drank loads of wine. Like, it was really like, you know, like just a girls' holiday. It was super fun. And anyway, so on the last day, there was this yogi. To be fair, I'm not sure what her title exactly was. Her name was Amy. She was like part yogi, part like skincare expert, part spiritual, like spiritual sort of guardian, let's say. And we had a lovely experience. So basically me and 7 girls, we all decided what we wanted what intention we wanted to be planted within ourselves, independently or collectively. So we all said our intention, and we created this art piece with different organic materials, whether that was coffee or turmeric, on this like canvas. But then we put the canvas on like biodegradable paper. So after it, we were able to plant our our creation that we all contributed towards into the ground. And one of my friends, she put like seeds on it, so hopefully it's going to like turn into like grow into something beautiful. And that experience, like, it was definitely very spiritual and it was very cleansing, but it was also really affirming because I went there for a friend's birthday, but I didn't actually know many of the friends. That was also like many of the mutual friends that I was attending like with. And all of us had come from different walkways of life, different experiences, different traumas, but we were all able to sort of be comforted in the fact that it's a safe space, and everyone's intention was just filled with love and comfort and protection and support. And yeah, no, since I've been back, I've been feeling very I've been feeling so comforted. So that's my nomination. Thank you, Amy. Like, honestly, she was amazing. I'm definitely going to have to do it again. It was such a great time. It was such a great time. I was literally like, girls' holiday, day. Like, I loved it. But yeah, what's your nomination for the Divine?
So it's really hard because I had like 3.
Oh, honey, we can have 3.
Okay, I'm going to go for 3. Okay, so the first one is a song. It's called Sing to the Moon by Laura Mabula. And there's a specific version that I like, which is the snarky puppy version. And this song, I can come back to it at any point in life and it just takes me to a certain place. And it's something of like, I mean, I don't know what her intention for the song was, but my intention for the song is something of like grounding. Mm-hmm. It's like finding hope. It's basically like saying, you know, when you're having a really difficult time, look up and sing to the moon, and that's where you'll find yourself. And it's just so powerful.
It's so powerful.
I've cried so many times to that song. Like, it's just so beautiful. So yeah, that's like definitely one to be dedicated and risen up.
Yes.
And then I guess the other 2 are kind of combined, and that's nature. And I have a million plants at the moment. Like, it's my
yes.
project.
Literally same, look. Like, covered with them. I've got this dried flower here as well. Like, you can't really see it. It's kind of pretty in this side, but I've decided, like, I've become obsessed with dried flowers and like just green plants. So I get you.
They're just amazing, and like they've got a life of their own. And this one, this is a Calafia medallion.
Okay.
So yesterday, this was looking so ill. I literally thought it was dead.
Yeah.
All the leaves were kind of cold around and limp and kind of grey. And I didn't know what was wrong with it. I literally was like really upset. And I think it's because I just moved house. So every plant has a different need, right? And you're trying to work out what room is it best, what is the lighting, the humidity, the water, blah, 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 blah. The cats, like, are they going to attack this plant as well, as another thing. And this one, I think I just was put it in the wrong room. And so I gave it a bath yesterday.
Yes.
Like, in water. And then it's come alive again. And it's
amazing.
Like, it's just something of like, wow, like how resilient, and just that you're still here. Like, I thought I lost you. So there's something there about the kind of resilience and the bounce back nature, like the finding what you need.
That's actually a really good way of putting it. Tell me about some plants.
So actually, I've got a picture of what the plant looked like yesterday.
Okay.
So sad. I don't know if you can see that.
It looks just a bit limp, a bit like low.
So yeah, there's that. And then the other thing about nature was that a couple of weeks ago, I went strawberry picking.
Yeah.
For my niece's 2nd birthday, we went strawberry picking, and so we picked. So I really hate beetroot, but I was like, let me just pick some beetroot.
Okay.
Pick some beetroot, and then my brother told me like this recipe, so I tried it out yesterday. It was beetroot and ginger juice. And,
hello.
It was so nice.
Wow.
So it was like, kind of like pureeing the beetroot, putting it through a sieve, adding water, adding sugar, adding ginger, put it in the fridge, nice and cold. And it's really good for like metabolism and energy, and apparently for like your intestines or your kidneys or something like that. So I'm feeling really energetic today.
We love to see it.
Exactly.
And the listeners love to hear it, you know, like we're all about that high energy in DM Talks. Oh no, that sounds amazing. I'm actually trying to like get more healthier, because I've realized, like, you know how you can have like a healthy vegetarian or like a unhealthy vegetarian. I am unhealthy vegetarian, and like I need to get more like raw foods in me, so like I just have a bit more of a balance. But I guess that will start with the beetroot and ginger juice.
Try it.
No, I'm definitely gonna try it. I'm gonna do a food shop tomorrow, and I'm gonna add some beetroot to my list, because I love ginger. Ooh.
Yeah, ginger. Yeah,
just wakes you up, you know.
Definitely.
Oh, amazing. Well, I shall take you to the next segment then.
Yes.
Which is, that wasn't really much of a segue, was it? But fuck it, we're here. Well, okay, so to be fair, I'm just so excited for this bit, so let's go. So the next part of the segment is called Decoding the Messes, and that's when we unpack something that we've seen on and offline. And today, in the spirit of psychology and well, just life, I think microaggressions is it's just such a significant topic to me. So it's kind of mad, because when I talk about microaggressions, it's like second nature, but to a lot of people, they don't know what it is at all. So I wanted to sort of have this episode with you, just to sort of discuss like we'll just discuss the intricacies of it, because it's very like insidious, and it's very like dismissive. And if you don't have clarity in self, and if you don't have clarity in your mind, microaggressions can mess with your head so much. So I'm really, really passionate about the subject.
I can see that.
How do you feel about microaggressions? What is your like experience with them? When did you learn what a microaggression was?
So I think when I first experienced, like not when I first experienced, but when I first, I guess, acknowledged its existence was when I was, how old was I? Maybe 22 or so. I went on a backpacking trip with my friend, who's Russian, white Russian, and we went across Asia. We started in India, and that was like literally being confronted with microaggressions every single minute of my existence in those countries.
Yeah.
And I think I had definitely experienced it before in the UK, but I just had not registered them. I just thought that's just something that happens to me. Yeah. It's just a me thing, and it doesn't really happen to anyone else. It's just part of my experience. Like I kind of written it off. But I guess things like being asked constantly, where are you from? Oh, England. But where are you really from? Oh, you don't have a British passport. Like all these kind of things of like basically denying my identity. You know, I'd be asked, where are you from? Okay, if you're really from England, show me your passport to prove it.
Do you know what I mean? They're crazy, aren't they?
Yeah, or like speaking to my friend, but not speaking to me, or speaking to my friend about me. Where's your friend from? And I'm right here.
Yeah.
It's just like those kind of things was just like, it kind of shattered the glass. I think I had a bit of a facade of like, no, there's no racism or anything like this. It's like everything's all great and fine in England. And then when I came back from that trip, I started to see things a lot more clearly. I think the first time I started to read about microaggressions was either Slay in Your Lane, or it was Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race. I feel like it was Slay in Your Lane that it really kind of hit home for me. Yeah. And just making sense of like, oh, that's not just a me thing. Like that's a black thing, or that's a black woman thing. And then even like hearing other people's stories and being like, oh, but you experienced that as well. Like, wow. And then I think around that era, it kind of became a lot more spoken about. So for example, or when Get Out came out.
Literally. Hey.
Because it literally just brings so many microaggressions, and you find yourself laughing because you're just like, oh my days, that's actually me.
Do you know what someone said to me once? Get Out is a comedy for black people and it's a horror film for white people.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is.
Because they're like, oh my God, someone said that to you, and you're like, do you remember that time?
And it was so funny because my white Russian friend, she came with me to watch Get Out, and she could laugh at those moments with me because she's seen it happen to me. Like, obviously in India, so she saw those moments. Or when you're just talking to people randomly in London, and they're like, "Oh, what's your favorite R&B song?" And you're like, "Well, I don't tell you that I even like R&B. So how did you know that?"
You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like, I think my relationship to microaggressions was a bit different, just because, like, I was brought up in Windsor, and because there was so much, like, don't get me wrong, there's so many different kinds of racism, but one racism that was really apparent in Windsor was the whole inferring something else but suggesting different, in the sense of like, oh, you're black, but oh, I'm intrigued by your blackness, you know? Like, it was very like, like, you're definitely, they were racist, but it's like, oh, but I'm really intrigued and interested by this person as well. So like, when I learned about that kind of microaggressions, it was, to be fair, actually, let me take that back. When I had those experiences, I could see them as like little things that would just I would have to take time out of my day to sort of cater around, which was, I mean, unfair, because I'm supposed to exist just as much as any other person in that place. But it happened. It really came into like, I was really able to like understand it though when I went to boarding school, and that's when I became familiar with I think their name's Sue Wing, and they did so the term microaggressions, I think the history of it was actually coined from an African-American lecturer who was discussing their experiences in higher education, or black people's experience in higher education. But then since that, there's been so many studies which talk about discrimination within different marginalized communities. So whether that's you're in the LGBTQI group, or whether that's you are a part of a different ethnic group. Let's say if you're a part of the gypsy community and you're getting microaggressions, you know, like it's when I went to boarding school, I had to learn and understand that people get different microaggressions from different things. So it was sort of like adapting to the microaggression and seeing what I have to take from it and what I'm going to use with it, if that makes sense. But you know, I've realized that we've been talking about microaggressions, and there might be some people that still don't know what they are. So I'm going to read out a little definition. So it says here that microaggression is a term used for brief and commonplace daily, verbal, and behavioral or environmental dignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative, prejudicial slights and insults toward any group, particularly culturally marginalized groups. So, it actually says here that the term was coined by a Harvard University professor called Chester M. Pierce in 1970. So that's not even that long ago. That's 40 years ago, you know. And then by the early 21st century, use of the term was also applied to casual degradation of socially marginalized groups. And this is when we talk about Gerald Wing Sue, who talks about microaggressions, and he has an extensive amount of literature surrounding this subject. He was actually the first person that I became familiar with in relation to psychology and racial based education, because in boarding school I was getting microaggressions all the time, and I was like, right, it cannot just be me then. And that's when I just realized the word of microaggression. So even the fact that I had the privilege of having that word, I'd be like, oh, excuse me, teacher, did you know this was a microaggression? Yeah, you're actually insinuating this. And because like I was stating it clearly what they're doing, they couldn't say shit. You know. And I mean, so that was my introduction to microaggressions, or introduction to the language. But then yeah, like I said, going to boarding school, living in Windsor, even being dark-skinned, like, I think I've faced a lot of extremities of discrimination, and I know that's another reason why I'm quite sensitive to, well, I might be more sensitive to things than others, you know? But saying that, I think it's also given me so much, like, I don't know how to explain it. When I was younger, I used to refer to it as a racial radar, because with my mind, like, I was constantly observing the social situation that was in front of me, whether it was the fact that I was the darkest person in the group, or if I was the only black girl in the group, or if I didn't have as much money as my peers because I was at a bougie boarding school, you know? Like, I've always come from a place where I'm not just outside, but I'm outside of the outside. So it's given me a different perspective on this matter, you know? So I went to university, and bearing in mind of what I've said, I really wanted to give university a chance, because, well, not a university chance, but I really wanted to give myself a chance in the way that I understood race relations in regards to psychology, people, identity, whatever, because I know I've seen, like, really, like, fucking sinister shit. And I think when I went to university, it was just, like, so disheartening, because it was like, oh no, whatever experience before that was just, like, extreme experiences of racism. University, that's fucking racism, because you're able to understand how it's systematic. You're able to sort of see that you're able to really see and gain clarity of the fact that people can't leave their bias at the door. These people are now lecturers. These people are limiting opportunities and resources for people from marginalized communities. And you can sort of understand how the cycle of racism continues. And it was alarming to me, because within my second year of university, I was in a situation which I was to experience, like, lots of racism. But
yeah,
it's annoying, because as Black people and with racial trauma, we want to dismiss forms of racism. We want to be like, oh wait, no, that can't be as racist as this racist, so that's not racist. But it's all fucking racism. Like, it just all adapts to the environment. So I think that's what really motivated me into conducting my study on microaggressions. It was a great opportunity, because, like you said, we always look at the US for cohorts, and that's not a fair representation of the things that happen to us in the UK, you know? Like, I always find microaggressions especially significant as well, because it's like, so us as British people, we like to be polite, we like to have a stiff upper lip, you know, we're not racist, we just do racist things, and we're like, wait, what? Racism? You know, like, British people, we have this certain this capability to be indirect or passive aggressive like no other fucking country. So in microaggressions in the UK, insidious, the insidious nature just flies. It just consumes. I just see it as like this fucking virus that just like it just like grows, and you know, it's just yeah.
And there's something about the form of microaggression here in the UK, which is, because we're Great Britain, right? So there's this kind of thing of like, there's all this hierarchy. And I remember watching this video by, I think it was by Barton, which is the Black and Asian Therapy Network. And they were showing clips of like colonialism, if there's the word.
Neither, don't worry.
There's this video, it was probably from like the 1900s, early 1900s, there's this video of like, I think it was England, and they were talking about, I think they were talking about India, and there's this video, it's like an advert, and it's just like, we are Great Britain, and we are the greatest race of the world, and da-da-da-da-da. And I think that hierarchical kind of thing of like, we are the best, we are the greatest, that kind of seeps into how racism is treated. It's kind of like, no, we're not racist, we don't do racism because we're so great, but we'll do it in a really underlying way, so you won't be able to pinpoint where it actually is. So it's really insidious and really subtle and really dangerous.
So dangerous.
And you think about, like, and that's a different topic, but trauma, like any trauma, the trauma of a car accident or the trauma of a lifetime of abuse are going to have two different complete impacts. One is a car accident, it can be treated straight away, it can be treated physically, you'll probably get loads of support. But if it's something that's been going on and on and on, a lot of people won't see it and they won't recognise it and they won't acknowledge it. And so then how do you then get help for it? And I think that's a bit of how, like, and I know there's been lots going on recently with the Black Lives Matter, and there's been very drastic forms of racism happening. But there's also still those really insidious forms that are underlying, they're harder to highlight, they're harder to pull out, they're harder to stop in the moment, they're harder to understand. And I think with a lot of microaggressions is that a person can say it and think that they've got good intentions, but actually it's not, it's got an impact.
Exactly. And I think that, you know what, you've literally just nailed it on the nail of the head, because I'm not, so for my dissertation, I actually was able to do a qualitative study. So I was able to essentially put my participants' experiences into words. But because this study had never been done before in the UK, besides from, how mad is this, right? From the perspective of people of colour, every time they looked at US cohorts, they didn't, I just don't understand. That's mad. How is me, a 23-year-old, graduated university 2019, wrote a study on microaggressions from the perspective of people of colour for the first time? It's mad to me. But I'm sorry, I'm getting all excited because there's actually, so there's one thing that I wanted to bring attention to throughout my dissertation. And I think there's certain points which makes you sort of understand how insidious it is. So there's this whole idea called intention exceptionalism, and in my dissertation I wrote it as communicative intent displayed by the transmitter of said microaggressions was found to influence whether the perceiver would validate their experience. The majority of participants discussed how, because some transmitters may have no intention for derogatory insights, although sometimes it may be intentional and so is commonly associated with more overt and direct racism, this should discourage the perceiver in responding in a way that is similar to one if one had perceived an intentional microaggression. This literally states how, because we're so used, or because we're so much more comfortable in confronting intentional, indirect forms of discrimination, we allow intentional or lesser than to sort of slide away. But tell me, who decides this? Who decides what is less and who decides what is more? If someone is getting bullied at work in a collection of microaggressions because of what the food they eat or what they or how they speak, etc., that is still racism. That racism isn't less or more the fact that when I'm walking down a street, a white man might push me out of the way because I was supposed, because in their eyes I was supposed to get away from them. Who is higher than us or bigger than us to say that experience is worse than that experience? So it makes me feel really uncomfortable because I hate this idea of comparing pain. Don't get me wrong, there's levels. If someone's experienced a hate crime and then someone's experienced micro invalidations, which suggests that someone is literally just unaware of the person of colour or the Black person's experience, that's going to be completely different. And obviously you need to respect the precautions that come after that, you know?
Yeah. And the thing is that they both cause pain, they both cause impact for that person that's having to receive that. And I think as well, there's this thing of I think we're so used to experiencing or hearing or seeing negative projections onto Blackness.
Yeah.
or there's so many negative projections on us. But sometimes these microaggressions, they sound like they're positive, but they're not.
Yeah.
They sound like compliments, but they're actually not. And so it can be easier for us to receive it or to not challenge it, because it's like, oh, that's nicer than what this person's saying. Like, for example, trying to think of something where
you're so pretty for a black girl.
Yeah, like that. Perfect.
It's one I know too well.
It really screws up your head, because it's like, oh, that's really nice, but it's not. But it's nice, but it's not.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like when I did my dissertation, it was like, so you get different forms of microaggressions. You get micro assaults, micro assaults was just like secondhand, like immediate racism. Not secondhand, like old age racism, you know, like if just, I don't know how to explain it, but like, let's say if someone called me a monkey, right? That would be second old age racism. It's obvious racism, it's direct, but like also there, I don't know, it's sorry, let me start again. So with microaggressions, you've got three different types of microaggressions. You have micro assaults, micro insults, and micro invalidations. Micro assault would be like, if a racist called me a monkey, right? Don't get me wrong, that's still racist and it's still direct, but because it's sort of the most recognizable one out of the microaggressions, it's recognized as stronger in comparison to like a micro insult, which is, oh, you're so pretty for a black girl. Like, that's a backhanded compliment, which literally suggests that I'm pretty, but then I'm limited because of my blackness.
Yeah.
And then if you look, okay, so that's like something that can be said to me, like a verbal microaggression, which is obviously in like discriminative and insulting. However, that is now reinforced by environmental microaggression, in the sense of we see no dark-skinned black women in our media, in our representation on magazines. So you can see how, let's say if I've got that comment over 10 times in a year of my life, let alone throughout my whole lifetime, and then I'm also combating the fact I'm living in a space where there's no dark-skinned women around me, that's going to make me internalize that, oh, I'm only pretty for, my prettiness is limited, my beauty is limited, and that's not fair, and that's not what we should be pushing on young minds.
Yeah, it's also kind of saying that your group is not pretty, but I'll pick you out as the one that is.
Do you know what I mean?
You should feel special. You should feel special for being picked.
Like, no, that's not okay. Honestly, like, I think it's so creepy as well. It's like, oh, you're so pretty for a dark-skinned girl. It's just like, oh my goodness, get away from me. Like, I didn't ask for any of this. Like, I literally was out here minding my business, yet you want to come with your long throat to say nonsense. Not today, not today. I think this is also a good sort of, a good time to sort of ask you more about, I can never say the word, is it cumulative trauma?
Cumulative trauma, yeah.
That's the one. So yeah, like, especially in relation to microaggressions, because you might have, depending on the individual, you might have little things, you might have big things, but they all contribute to sort of chipping away at you, okay? And when you sort of recognize that as a idea of cumulative trauma, because it builds over time, how do you even go about dismantling that, you know?
Big question.
sorry, that is a big question. It is a big question.
I think like it kind of acts like, the thing that comes to mind is like a narrative. So we experience these things, whether it's like microaggression or racism or trauma in other areas, but maybe it might link to that, to something from the experience that we had from the racism. So for example, if I was in primary school and my teachers made me feel like I was not smart enough and they put me in the special educational needs or SEN group, which often happens a lot to black young children, that means that if another microaggression comes or something, a microaggression comes which makes me feel like I am stupid or not smart, that's going to hurt me even more, because I remember that other experience of where I was put into an SEN group. So it's kind of like all these things, they come together and they can form a narrative which can be really insidious and really harmful to us. I might then carry away this narrative that I'm stupid, I'm not smart, I'm not good enough. Any job that I get, I don't deserve it because I shouldn't be here. And then this whole imposter syndrome comes in and kicks in. And I think that's like an example of cumulative trauma. It's all these scars, perhaps in one area or in the various areas, that really kind of damage us and hurt us, and we carry it with us. We carry this pain, and sometimes we end up kind of reenacting it or having to act it out because this narrative keeps being thrown back on us all the time. I don't know if that makes sense. But
no, that made sense. I really, really appreciated that. Like, I think it's as you were talking, it actually reminded me of our phone call when I discussed that I saw this video on microaggressions, but it was aimed at children, because there's this whole idea that we shouldn't teach children racism, like they're too young, forgetting that fucking black and brown people get to be our children too at some point in their lives. And so that's a consistent argument that comes up within racial education. I don't understand how, because it's like, what, did you not think this person was for once? Like, where do you think they learn about race? Anyway, so there's this video called Microaggressions as Mosquito Bites, and it's animated, it's like cartoonistic, it's very easy and digestible, and it's really relatable. So basically, they have a video and they describe microaggressions as mosquito bites, but they say that some people get bitten more so than others, and they show this in the video with, like, let's say a same-sex couple walking down the street and then they get bitten, or an individual in a wheelchair and they're getting something in the supermarket and then they get bitten. And then there was, I think, for I like how they used a black woman cartoon for one of the multiple ones, because it was like, oh, some people get bitten more so than others, and it was like this black woman bite, and it's like the last bite was like, oh, you're so aggressive, and then she's there like with this it's quite funny because it's like a cartoon, but she's there like sort of like like she's got this like fire thing, she's like upset and like sort of shouting, but then you just see her crying. And I liked how they used that representation for the last video, because it showed you how misogynoir influences the mosquito bites, the microaggressions. It shows you how like the microaggressions that she was receiving was about her hair, about her articulation, about her skin color, about her this. Like there's nothing in a black woman that racists don't come for, and they showed that in a video just by using 3 different microaggressions that was around her, the way that she spoke, the way that she looked, and the way that she carried herself, you know. And they had that as the last they had that in the video. They also had some people who are mosquitoes are in dangerous positions, and there was a image of a conversation in a college like admissions like office, but the college admissions tutor was the mosquito bite, you know. So now you see how microaggression has now influenced this individual, because let's say if I say to an individual like, oh, I don't think you're good enough for this degree, or I don't think you're capable of like this is going to be a massive struggle, and then that person's like, okay, well then I won't apply for this one, and that has limited their opportunity, their resources, it's limited their like self-belief as well, because now they think that they can't do something when really it's someone's own presumptions being projected onto them. Like even now you can see how a microaggression and in okay, you can see how microaggression, a form of racism that is perceived to be less than has now impacted on a societal level, on an institutional level. So this is why I think microaggressions are so important, because it's like, who are we to say what's okay microaggression, what's a good microaggression, what's a bad microaggression, what is this? Like, there's so many forms of racism that you need to sort of respect it and evaluate it when it happens, because if you don't, you're sort of left in this double bound dilemma where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, and sort of feeling hopeless, and that's not fair.
And it reminds me of what you were saying about because that sounds really powerful. I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen it, but I haven't watched it yet. And that scene that you said of the black woman, and then with the fire, I think people are so quick to see the fire before they see the build up that got to the fire.
Exactly.
And then another microaggression then comes of saying you're aggressive, or you're too much, or you're the angry black woman.
Yeah.
But there was a process. You triggered me to get to that place. You triggered the anger within me, because I didn't feel safe.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Sorry, go on. I'm getting into it. Look at us. Go on.
Right. Yeah, it's just mad. Like, it's just, there's that quote, if you think something is too small to make an impact, try sleeping in a room with a mosquito. And that explains it so beautifully.
My goodness.
Because mosquitoes are so tiny, you don't see them, but you can feel them, and they hurt, they sting, they scar. It's crazy.
Mate, that is such a good quote, especially with this video.
I think it's Anita Roddick, the person that made The Body Shop.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, wow. No, it's mad. I like microaggressions. It's just like this. People don't realize the power of microaggressions, innit? And I think that's why this episode is so important, because when you understand it, as anybody can communicate this form of microaggression, we all are in different places of power. You can really see the effects of it. So like, even in my dissertation, there was a participant from a half Pakistani and a half white British background, and she stated how, because she's more white passing, she gets more microaggressions from her Pakistani family. And if you're a person of color, if you're a black person, that's not shocking. You know, that's not shocking. There's the amount of times where Bill criticized for not being black enough or not being this enough, it's draining, let alone if I was actually like white passing. Do you know what I mean? And I wrote that in my dissertation, and people were like, oh my God, really? What do you mean? And I'm just like, I mean, I'm not the first person to, well, I mean, I am actually. I was about to say I'm not the first person to say this, but I am. I am, because it's crazy. It's kind of mad, because yes, anybody can transmit a microaggression, but like I said, we're in different places of power. So how the impact of the microaggression is debatable. It differentiates to person. I was actually reading a study before. Let me see if I can actually get it up. I was reading a study before our phone call. And it's called How Does Stigma Get Under the Skin? The Meditating Role of Emotional Regulation. It's in 2000, where is it? Let me go for reference. Okay, so 2009 by Mark L. Hatzenbluer. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. And John Dovido and Susan Nolan Hoexema. I hope that's given enough people intel to find the study. But I use this study in my dissertation because I think it's so important. It's called How Does Stigma Get Under the Skin? And you just used a sample of LGB, lesbian, gay, and bisexual respondents, and racial respondents. So like Black, mixed race, and I think it was Asian. Obviously, there are limitations for studies like this, because it's like, how can I talk about how do I word this? There are limitations, because it's like, Okay, so now even what I just said, the study is using lesbian, gay, and bisexual sample. There are more people in the lesbian, gay, like in the LGBTQI group. So do you see how already it's a bit like limited, because it's like, well, it's not fully representative. Anyway, let me carry on. So this sample, this experiment wanted to examine whether specific emotional regulation strategies account for stigma and distress association. So they, so all the participants, they took part in this, that took part in the study, they accounted that they received more stress when they had a stigma-related incident, regardless if they were African American, in the racial respondents or the sexuality sort of respondents, right? Mm. However, so here, this is when it gets a bit like, ooh, psychology. Okay, so so in experienced sampling study, rumination and suppression occurred more on days when stigma-related stresses were reported than on days when these stresses were not reported. And rumination mediated the relationship between stigma-related stress and psychological de-stress. Right. The next bit, the effect of social support and distress was moderated by concealability of stigma. I just really want to heighten what I've just said. So concealability of stigma. There's individuals in a group that are part of the LGBT community, but that is not visible, right? You can't look at someone and be like, that person's gay, right? You don't know unless, obviously there's cultural influences that might align with someone showing their sexuality. So let's say the fact that the pride flag or the rainbow is so iconic to the LGBT group, the pride like symbolism, that might refer to knowing someone that is gay. However, you cannot actually tell if they are gay, you know? So see a group of people who look like me, it is obvious that they are black. There's no room for ambiguity. There's no room for confusion, you know? Like, you look at me, you see a dark-skinned black woman, and the level of concealability influences the level of microaggressions, and that is apparent in all forms. Like, I was one of my themes, or one of my sub-themes in my study, was talking about assumed increased vulnerability. And there was this lady who is from Pakistan, this participant from Pakistan, and she was saying that she doesn't receive microaggressions that much, or she doesn't notice them that much because her clothing are more westernized. However, if someone was wearing a burqa, or if someone was wearing a hijab and then a burqa, then the microaggressions between this community is going to be ridiculous, because now it's made it more apparent that they are other, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, like, this is ages ago, but I had this random like metaphor in my head of thinking about it as like onions.
Okay.
Like every so you've got like white onions. Are they white onions?
You can get, I think they're brown onions.
Brown onions, and you've got the red onions. Brown onions tend to be a bit more, I don't know, I think they're more used. But there's something of like, yes, there are all these intersections, like, and you've got all these layers underneath of discrimination that someone could experience. They could experience discrimination because of their sexuality, or because of their gender, or because of their mental illness. But a lot of these things are unseen. But with our skin color, we can't hide it. We have to wear it. We don't have that agency to say, oh, by the way, I'm black. Like, we don't have that. Whereas someone that is gay or lesbian, they have that agency to be like, I can decide when I tell somebody that. I can decide when I reveal that. I can decide who gets to know that. For us, we wear it. It's who we are. We don't have that agency. And so it leaves us open and vulnerable to more microaggressions without our permission.
Exactly. Like there is a permission. I love how you use that word, because this is why intersectionality matters, you know, because like right now we're talking about concealability of stigma and the impacts of that. But then you'll have a black queer woman, and now they are open to to now another layer of form of discrimination, because when they choose to disclose that, or if they were outed, if anything that in the form of disclosure means that now they're more susceptible to more harm.
Yeah. And
I just find it crazy how, like, it's so influential, like it's everything's connected. Do you know what I mean? Like, I find it mad how, depending on how much I disclose, if I have the opportunity to, means of how much discrimination I'm going to get.
Yeah. And because then also the discrimination and the microaggressions come not just from, like, as a Black woman, I will get discrimination from white people.
Yeah.
I will get discrimination from men. If I was a Black queer woman, I would then maybe get discrimination from Black people within my community that are homophobic. So there's like so many layers and groups that are then now turning towards me or against me, and so I'm more alone. And it reminds me of, I wish I could remember her name.
Don't worry, take your time.
The actress from do you watch Pose?
Oh, I want. Don't worry, I've got you. Electra Abundance.
Angel.
India Moore.
Yes, India Moore did this poem probably about a month or so ago. Oh my gosh, I cried. It was called "Can I Come" or something like that. It was basically saying, like, it was a poem to the Black community of, can you invite me? Can I be there? Can I come to the cookout, or are you going to discriminate against me? Can you accept me? Will I be? It was just a most amazing poem, and it just highlights, I guess, how many angles of microaggressions there are for those individuals. Like,
completely. No, I'm happy that you brought India Moore up, because they're Black, they're trans and non-binary, and they are also more passing in the trans community than other people. And they've mentioned this many times within their platform, whether they're on interviews or whether they're talking about it on Pose. There was actually, I think it was an argument, actually, not India Moore. It was an argument between a lecturer and I can't remember the other house mother's name. You know, House of Evangelista, the person who has that house. A lecturer's more passes more than that lady does. So there's this whole idea of, like, cis passing privilege, and like, as us as cis women, like, that's something that we are completely unaware of. That's something that we not unaware of. That's something that we've been conditioned in, and it's only until further education, independent study, that we're unlearning those things. And like, we're just Black women, let alone being on the gender, we're Black women, let alone be, like, identifying outside the binary of gender. So microaggressions, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know where to start. Like, that would be a complete mind fuck. Like, and it's crazy because microaggressions, because it's a mental thing, it will have you gaslighting yourself, dismissing yourself, wanting to understand things that don't make fucking sense, because so many people are trying to sort of pull the wool over your eyes, because that's their perception. They're in the privilege of being able to look in the world without being in a relationship without being in a racialized body, or they have the privilege of, like, seeing this as an isolated incident and then leaving it. You know, and it's just very. Sorry, I thought I heard a sound. I was like, oh my God.
Was there a ghost? Was there not? Find out in part 2 of DM Talks.